It's 92Q, the new home of the AM Click. We are here. That's right. We are live. And we're with Roberta's House. And we got two great men to tell us a lot about men's trauma. Is that cool? We're going to talk about men's trauma.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
We have, I don't know how it is on y'all computer, but on my right, that's Mr. Adam Johnson right there. And the great Dr. Jeff Menzie, representing Morgan State. Could have been copping, but I don't know what. He could have went up the street. I don't know what.
HBCU love, fam.
Yes.
Definitely.
Let me ask y'all who could answer this question best to start it off. Are men able to identify their traumas?
Yes.
Some instances, yes. I mean, you got the obvious stuff, where somebody, like we were talking earlier, loses a close family member, somebody close to you, experiences violence in your presence. But then you got those subtle traumas, that once you grow callous over a scab, you don't necessarily feel everything the same way, but it doesn't mean it's not impacting you. So in some cases, absolutely, yeah.
So how do you go ahead?
Oh, I was just saying, like Dr. Menzie was saying, some we don't identify, and some things that later on have been identified as traumas, just like growing up in poverty. Like that's a subtle trauma that like Dr. Menzie was just speaking of. And I think it does have an impact. We just don't consider it. Like even like our brothers being incarcerated, that's another trauma, because that's trauma not just for the brother who's incarcerated, but for the whole family as well. Yeah. And so those are things that had those impact that we necessarily don't identify the traumas.
How do we cope with trauma? How do Black men do it?
Best way we know how, depending on the circumstance. What I do know is that many of us don't seek the professional help that would maybe perhaps expedite the healing of it and the addressing of it. But, sometimes we resort to self-medication, substance use and abuse, drinking, smoking, getting high, whatever. And other times we do have tight-knit family circles or tight-knit inner circles where we can sit down with the homies and really hash these things out. So they're both healthy and negative ways of dealing with it. But it's still a toss. It's a coin toss, man.
That's definitely like true. And like some things, especially as like Black men, we're always having that expectation in that role of just being strong 24/7. So sometimes we just try to work our way through it. Well, I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna do the things I have to do so I don't have to occupy my mind, so my mind won't go to that trauma. Right. So I'll just keep doing whatever I need to do so I don't address it, because if I don't address it, then it's not there. But like Dr. Menzie saying, things fester. So we don't want, when those things fester, then we get a whole bunch of other issues.
And real quick, if I can, a lot of times we'll also try to normalize the trauma, the saying, hurt people. And so, what we might do is, try to inflict that same level of hurt on other people so that now it's normal. Like I know that everybody that I'm looking at right now, on my block has experienced the same trauma that I have. So now it's just what it is. It's no longer quote unquote trauma that makes me different. It's the trauma that we all have and we share it. So now what? It ain't nothing wrong with it.
I've been going through some things right now in my life, and my wife wanted me to see a therapist. So I'm seeing a therapist. And like you said, my trauma, I have a problem of talking about it. And they said that's the worst thing you can do is keep it bottled up. What do you guys got to say about that, about having a man or someone just even talking about it?
It's important, man. I'm glad you said you brought up the therapist piece, because a lot of times we don't find therapists that we can align with. And that's very important. And sometimes that's the issue why we don't talk to people, because you're sitting across with somebody that you might not click with. You might not feel their vibe. You might be afraid to share certain things because they'll take it a way other than what it's meant to be taken, know? And so, but I think it's very important to be able to talk. And it's not only about verbally articulating it, but sometimes if you could just write your junk out. Like I used to work with youth, so-called at-risk youth, man. And I would tell them to write a version of their life, how it is, and then remix that joint. You know what I mean? Just write a remix version of how you want it to be. And that process itself is therapeutic for them, because it's taking them from right now to understand that it could be something different. And you can actually create and script that difference that you got. So talking, it happens in many ways, man. It's just about communicating it and getting it out one way or the other.
Right. And doing it in like healthy ways, and like Dr. Menzie was talking about, like going to therapy, and like you said, and connecting with that person. I remember when I worked in the school system, and parents used to be like, "Oh, I want them to have therapy." I'd be like, "Well, let's have a conversation about what therapy is and if we're a good fit." I always tell people, interview your therapist, because you have that right, because not, we all don't click. And so I may identify with you, but there could be somebody who identifies a little better.
Right.
And so I think that's the thing of just like getting out, talking about, but making sure that you're in the right space to do that. I think that's one of the most important things, making sure that you're in a safe, comfortable environment that also promotes growth through that process. So I think that's a really good point about, like I said, just talking it out.
Well, we got people watching. We compelled to you. I was going to ask somebody, ask a question, and look what happened. Abdul say, therapy is truly important. I journal a lot because talking with other men, let's just say everybody doesn't possess integrity. And that's what you just said. You got to watch who you talk to, because even your best friend ain't somebody you can really talk to.
Right. Yeah, and if I could vibe on that real quick, that whole integrity piece is important, because what you're revealing are vulnerabilities. And sometimes people are looking for any angle to get in, to find a weak point to one way or another get over on you. And then also, as far as, and I don't want to make this seem like it's super negative, but at the same time, people in your circle sometimes need you to function as they're used to you functioning. And if you're functioning out of pain and dysfunction, they're used to that. But if you start to grow and elevate and change yourself, sometimes they can feel judgment because they're not. And so then what they could do is they start trying to chop you down, and they start hating, getting that little side eye stuff. Shout out to Jay-Z. I can see a side eye in my sleep.
I ain't just putting them facts.
Come on, man.
Why is it so difficult for us as Black men to even seek therapy? Why we hold on to so much to even get there?
Because I think because we equate vulnerability with weakness. And as Black men, we had to shoulder so much that we're just these he-men, we're just these strong men in every single aspect. So it's something that I determine, or society determined, is weak, then I'm not going to do it, because I had to hold up these expectations in these roles. So me being vulnerable, me showing emotion, me crying, or me just being emotional, being vulnerable with someone who I may not know, or around people I do know who have this, well, he's always like this. So if I show them something different, they're going to view me differently. So then they're going to back away, or then they're going to call me weak. They're going to call me sensitive. So that's going to hurt me. So that's why we're so shy about it, because I had to maintain who I am. And we don't think about, I can be multiple versions of myself, or I can grow, I can be different. But it's kind of I got to stick to where, in this box that everybody sees me in. Because if they look at me differently, then I'm not going to be that strong, tough man that they see me every day.
On the flip side of what Adam is spitting right there, man, it's like in certain places, like where our most vulnerable men are, if you show any sign of weakness, you might get tested, and so you have to be on the shell. You have to be that way in many places. I would say more places than not. I don't care if you're in the work environment. You could be Wall Street in it. If somebody sees a vulnerability or what they perceive to be a weakness, you're gonna get tested. And sometimes getting tested will force you, to draw the line on somebody, which could then lead into other things. And I think that's also why a lot of men, this is one of those stresses that we usually don't talk about, kind of make themselves small in certain areas to avoid the test and then having to respond to a test. But it's just this. And I don't want to use that language, toxic masculinity, because I reject that notion, as it is generally used. But it's that reason why you got so much bravado out here, because, we are mammals, we are a part of the animal kingdom, and it's natural for animals to test who they perceive to be the alpha or the top of that food chain. And so, but unfortunately, our environment doesn't support us preparing ourselves, discipline ourselves, and then being able to appropriately respond to certain things.
What about the younger generation? All of us are of age. What about our young Black men, the 20-year-olds that's have things on their minds as well? How are we going to, reach those guys?
I think it's a thing of guidance and not coming at them in a way that's finger pointing. I think sometimes older generations can do the whole finger point thing. You're wrong. We didn't do this, that, and the third. Sometimes that comes off as shaming them. But I think we have to come to a place of we're here for you. And when you're ready, come to us. And just showing them ways. And I think a lot of times it's just approach. And just showing them that anger and not acting on that anger and that impulse. Because I think that's what a lot of the younger generation does, is anger, impulse. But it's trying to show them you can construct that in so many different ways. And then ways that can be positive. And just showing them in a way that we can communicate to them in a way that they'll get it. Because I think a lot of times we're well, it's worked for us, so it's going to work for them. No, not necessarily. Working in the school system, I always said, their thing when I work with young males was trust. So I really had to build that trust with them because some of them did have negative experience with African-American males where that trust was broken. So I had to work really hard on trust and rapport building just to even get them to open up. So our conversations was everything but what they were going through, just so they can feel like, okay, he gets me. Okay, I get it now. And then my approach switches up. So I think it's guidance and approaching them with them.
Yeah, that piece of modeling, you know, I think one of the best things we could do, as you said, Porkchop, men of age. I have all these grades. I was gonna say, speak for yourself, but I can't even get away with it.
I love it.
You know what I mean? It's wisdom. One of my students said, man, Doc, I would dye my beard black if I was you. I said, no, I got one of these representing each one of y'all out there.
Right.
But the thing about model, I think one of the best things we could do for the younger generations is refine ourselves and present them a better version of ourselves as the adult men. Because we are modeling, and whether we set ourselves up to be a role model or not, they are watching us, and they do as we do and not necessarily as we say, because they're watching us. And so if we could present them the best walk, I mean, a steady mind and a steady hand to assist, right? And not the judgment, as you were saying, Adam, and also somebody commented about nobody wants to feel judged, right? And it's that piece right there. And so I like when I'm talking to young ones, I come from where I come from, and I let them know that. Like you saying, Adam, you know, when we first start sessions back when I was functioning as a therapist, man, the first couple of sessions was all about rapport building. And, you know, that's what part of the model that at the agency I was with. First thing was establishing harmony. You know, it's like, nah, bro, we in this together. This is a harmonic, you know, we moving together. We're going to align with this so that when we get down into this heavy work, you already feeling secure enough in this process and with me as your guide to go ahead and open up to the degree that you want to. But that was a reflection of my own training and my own self-work and my own willingness to sacrifice and let go of some of my stuff with an SH on the front of it, you know, so that I could get better. But I think that's one of the best things we could do as older men, you know, is do that.
Ms. Lisa just hit us up and said, because they say that's white people stuff, and it's not. I think it's necessary when necessary. And I think we all agree on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lisa just said a word.
Did she?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, and it's a shame that so many things that are seemingly healthy and beneficial for us have been labeled as white stuff. In other words, stuff that's not for us, like eating healthy. You know what I mean? Oh, that's that white stuff. You know what I mean? Exercising and running. You know, oh, that's that white stuff. You know, getting the education. Oh, that's that white stuff. If you really look at that for what it is, it's like almost like bizarro world. Like you're telling me that we got the market cornered on the negative stuff, and they got the good stuff. You know, so we got to start restructuring that and making it cool to be healthy, making it cool. That's why I love like Supernova Slum and, you know, Dead Prez, Stickman. You know, them brothers right there, they like, nah, I'm a health warrior. What y'all talking about? And these ain't necessarily prison muscles. These is hitting the block, you know, bar stars. You know, this is really getting it in like that. But yeah, man, she said a word right there because that's a major problem that we're facing.
Speaking of trauma, we said something earlier on the radio, and I don't know if y'all saw it on Instagram. A young black boy was I can't even explain the word, but his father cut his hair, put his hairline like back hair, and put the word gay on the side of his head. And the boy had to be no older than maybe 10. And he was smacking him in his head and say, yeah, you want to be gay now? And you can hear like the mom in the video. When someone goes through that type of trauma, how can that young man even get help if his mother and father is at home, when his home is that disruptive?
Right. Yeah, that's tough, man. That little buddy right there, he's being set up for failure. And I always tell the brothers, no, brothers, I ain't trying to raise no punk. I said, well, you almost guaranteeing that you will if you punking them constantly. Yeah. You know, and that's what they're shaming him, they're punking him, they're breaking him. Yes. And unfortunately, they've broken him and they don't have the resources to rebuild him in strength. And so what they've done is they potentially have set this young brother up to have to go through the rest of his life questioning himself, questioning his worth, his value, because these are the two people that created him. These are the two people from which he comes. And if he's being rejected on that level, his whole core has been rocked now. And so what they've done for all intents and purposes, and let me speak generally. So typically in a situation like that, for all intents and purposes, that child has now been rendered susceptible to being taken over by whatever identity comes along and embraces him, so he might end up in the streets. He might end up anywhere. He might end up trying to take himself out because, again, it's a void that's there. And I just wish that parents wouldn't do that. One of my colleagues at Morgan, Stacy Patton, she talks about how abusing children like that ends up damaging them for life. It literally has a neurological, I mean, it impacts literally how their brains operate and function. And so what they've just done to him is set him up for educational issues, behavior problems, and identity issues. All kind of stuff is in his future, unfortunately.
Man. Mr. Adam, you own nothing?
No, I think it's the thing, though. If I can't trust my parents and I don't have that nurturing, that guidance, that promotion of growth, anything like that, where else can I trust? Who else can I trust? That does so much damage to his further relationships with everybody. But then, like Dr. Menzies was saying, he's going to seek it. I'm not getting it here, so I'm going to go wherever and whomever I can get it from. And so then that leads to a lot that decision making isn't, and then you really don't know what true love, true nurture looks like. So you're just going to accept anything and just run with it because you don't have that clear identity. The home is the foundation of who we are. If that foundation is broken at home, it leads to so many other problems. So that's why I always used to tell the parents when I worked in counseling that this is all of us. You got to work with me. I got to work with you. You got to work with your child. Like, this is a partnership. Like, because if they don't see you into this, then it goes left.
And Porkchop, you asked what can be done for him. Yeah, I missed that part because I was talking about what's being done to him.
Right.
Hopefully this could take a positive turn to where he'll just totally reject that type of attitude, that type of person. And he'll run to the exact opposite and make sure that he himself is going to do better by himself. Hopefully he has some type of a role model that he can look at in his community, at school. Maybe hopefully somebody can see the light in this young brother and take him under wing and actually guide him and give him other opportunities. Because I mean, plenty of us come from slum situations, and we get that one person that can recognize. It's kind of like when Jesus was found, teaching and learning in the temple at 12. You see how that turned his life around, and so there are many success stories coming from abusive situations to where people can go in a totally opposite way. They can use that to fuel their success as opposed to beat them down. And so prayerfully, this young brother will have somebody, even a relative who knows that that's happening. Give him a little arm, take him out.
The good thing is, and bad thing for the parents is that now it's on social media.
Yep.
Now you're going to get in trouble.
Yep.
Now the young brother will be offered all sorts of good things for where he can go, who you want to live with, where, you ain't got to be in that predicament. And now the father and the mother's going to look crazy because y'all didn't have to do that on social media. You had to do it at all.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
With your son.
It's unfortunate though, because a lot of people are clicking like I'd have did the same thing. Right. So they also have an echo chamber of people that support it. And like you said, good and bad. It's one of them double-edged swords, right? Because at the same time, and some people are looking at him like, oh, that's a vulnerable one. There's sharks in the water too, and they can smell a drop of blood a mile out.
Right. That's another form of trauma, is the social media aspect.
Yes, sir.
Because now people can walk down the street like, oh, you was that boy? Oh, wasn't that your parents doing that?
Yeah.
That's another form of trauma.
You're going to be a meme.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We're sitting here with Roberta's House. Big shout out to Adam Johnson. Big shout out to Dr. Jeff Menzies. A lot of people in Baltimore, since we all know the city we're in, lots of murders. Yes. A lot. And we stay on the top 10 of the murder rate. How can someone prepare themselves mentally for all that's going on? The children, the mothers, the fathers, knowing that their young brothers and sisters are dying day to day.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing is taking time to process on your own where you are and how you're handling it. Because I think sometimes we really don't know what we're going through. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of like, well, something's wrong, but what exactly is wrong? So sometimes that self-reflection piece is like where you are and what do you need? Because sometimes we may run to something just off the impulse, like, oh, I need help. And we run to something and it's not really for us. So then they're setting you back and you're like, well, that didn't work, so I just give up. Mm-hmm. So it's the thing about understanding where you are and having those transparent conversations, like what's going on with your circle? And then reaching out, like letting other people know, like, hey, this is what I'm going through. Hey, are you experiencing this? Hey, how are we handling these things like that? And I think understand where the community is. And then because you can bounce ideas off of one another and then try to make a reasonable and sensible decision of how to reach out for support. And always say, like, do it when you're ready. Because I think sometimes we push people, oh, you need help, you need help, you need help. But then I reach out, may not fully be ready. And so because I'm not really feeling the effects, because sometimes we're in a state of shock. sometimes we're in a state of numbness. So I really don't see the benefits of it in that moment. But once I really started to see the effects for myself, and so I realized, hey, I'm not the same person, then I think those are the best times to go, when you know yourself better than anyone else. But people can tell you to do something and you may not be ready. Somebody can tell me, oh, go run a marathon. I'm not ready to run a marathon tomorrow, but they're like, it's good for you. Okay. But I may not be ready. So like I said, knowing yourself and where you are, and then reaching out and making the sensible, thought out decisions of how to reach out for support. Like I said, and using your community network as well.
Adam, don't ask me to run no marathon, okay?
We're running one together. We're running one together. So
you know the answer already.
Come on. Right. One more marathons in October, man. We in it.
Oh, go ahead. I got you. I'll be on the side throwing you water, whatever.
Right, yeah.
No, you with me. No, this is a group effort now.
One of the things I think is, there are plenty of community-based organizations out there that help to keep the children active, to help them have a sense of purpose, to keep them connected with a network that's about thriving and striving for healthier outcomes. And so I think that, we could, whatever way possible, lend our hand to support, like Roberta's House, this organization, helping people to process. You got Bobby Marvin Holmes out there on the front lines. You got the 300. You got Guns Down. You got all kind of stuff happening. If we support those type of street level frontline community organizations and activists, then what you do is you help to multiply, their efforts. You help to multiply their energy, so that then when it comes down to every individual that they touch, what we're doing is one by one saving, a whole generation of people. And then eventually we'll get to a critical mass, because invariably those young children that are helped, those families that are helped, they look at those organizations and then they want to give back and pay it forward. So I think that that's one very efficient way that we can do that, is support organizations like Roberta's House, frontline activists like Bobby, just really, really get it in there and understand we might not be able to save the world, but we might save the one that does save the world.
Yeah.
That's real.
How can we encourage young men? Whoa, somebody right here. Wait a minute. Being a Navy veteran, I was going through a lot of stress, but I kept it hidden. While I was in, I didn't talk to anybody. Yeah, we just talked about that, about the men that keep it inside. And I'm one of them. It took me a long time to actually start talking to people, because I used to think that nobody want to hear it.
Right.
I didn't want to talk about it. Growing up as a man, as a boy in Baltimore City, like that wasn't our deal to, express ourselves mentally like that.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do?
What that turns into? That turns into a lot of these chronic illnesses that we end up experiencing as men, a shortened life, life expectancy, to where, we keep it in, it turns into stress. That high stress levels become normalized, and we end up with blood pressure issues. We end up with the sugar, we end up with circulation issues. We end up with all kind of stuff, you see? And that's because we are turning that stuff internal, and it's beating us up and eating us up on the inside. And then we have these negative outcomes stress. We get less patient, more aggressive. We get testy, so, and then it starts to interrupt our social, interactions, especially with intimate partner relationships. So all of this stuff is a result of not communicating. And so again, brothers, even if you don't feel like you're ready to speak, like you said, Adam, when you're ready, if you don't feel like you could speak about it, at least start writing that junk down. And if you're worried about somebody finding your journal, what you wrote, burn it afterwards in a safe place, take it somewhere and burn that joint up the way, go catch nothing else on fire.
Right.
But, get rid of it afterwards, but just get it out, because it's going to eat you up on the inside, and we don't want no more of those problems. We can't afford those problems.
That's so true. I think the other thing is it's never too late to seek support. There's no age limit to therapy, or there's no duration. Well, I went 30 years without therapy, so I can't go now. No, you can definitely still go. And sometimes, even at Roberta's House, people call on behalf of someone else. And then when I reach out to that person, they're just oh, wow. Sometimes it's intimidating to reach out for help. But sometimes just going to someone who you trust and who hey, can you help me with this? That goes a long way, because when I make those phone calls at Roberta's House, they was they feel relieved, oh, somebody reached out to me. Oh, this person did it because somebody on my behalf who trusts me and who knows me was able to do this. They're relieved, and they're oh, and they buy in, because sometimes they just needed someone just to reach out. And that's what we have to do. This is just a societal thing. It's just reach out. We know what people are going through. They may not accept it the first time, but just know that we're here, and we're here to listen and to help. I may not be the person to help you directly, but I can take you into that direction. And I think that's the whole point. There's someone with open arms for you.
And I'm glad you said that. Let's give them the number right now. It's scrolling at the bottom. If you or someone you know that needs help and needs the Roberta House, right there, 410-235-6633, or you can log on to robertashouse.org. Before I say thank you to Dr. Menzie and Dr. Johnson, because I know you're going to be a doctor soon. Y'all got any last words for someone that's right here listening, or they could be watching it tomorrow or any other day? What's your last thoughts in telling the black man about mental health?
I think we're like cars. And like I said, we don't get that maintenance. The car breaks down, it's no good to anybody. We got to do that maintenance to ourselves, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. Because like Dr. Menzie said, we're not taking care of ourselves emotionally, mentally, it leads to so many other health issues. And like I said, there's no time frame for when to go look for help. Because like I said, because therapy, a real therapy session is no judgment. It's a safe space. It's a place for you to get comfortable and a place for you to work through. Because our job as therapists isn't just to shame you and say, oh, you've done this wrong your whole life and things like that. Like, no, this is something to help build and to grow. I always say it's easier to tear somebody down than to build them back up. But just to know that there are people willing to do that work with you to build you up and to help you to grow.
Mm-hmm. And what I'd like to say is that, the reality is that seeking help is not a sign of weakness. It's actually an indication of strength and courage. I mean, if you think about what it actually takes to do it, a lot of people don't do it because they're afraid. And it's because it takes that extra oomph to step out there and admit, one, there is an issue, and two, to have faith enough to know that you can resolve those issues. And so my thing is this, y'all: health is your birthright, mental, physical health. And, if you can't do it for yourself, do it for those who's coming after you and those that came before you. Because we're living in a time right now to where, we've got more resources than ever. And I think that it's up to us to man up enough to be like, look, you know what? I'm going to take control of this. I'm going to start disciplining myself more. I'm going to stop inflicting pain and trauma on myself and therefore people around me. And I'm going to take sole responsibility for my life going from this point forward, which means that if I can cut out one thing every day, or something, do something better every day. If you smoke 15 cigarettes a day, cut it back to 14 a day. Do something in small increments to give yourself those examples and experiences of success. Because then it does what? It demystifies it. It lets you know, like, yo, I can do this. I can make this change. You're like, man, look, man, this time last week, by this time in the morning, I would have had 3 beers. You know what? This time I only took a little swig of one. It didn't even taste the same. But again, understand that you could do it, that you got every resource at your fingertips. You just got to tap into it and just claim for yourself that this is my new life. Turn over the leaf and don't care about what them Bama say about, you changed. Say thank you.
Listen, Doc, I want to tell you something from the bottom of my heart. And Mr. Johnson, this live we doing right now might not be for nobody, but what it is for me, I told myself Friday that Monday I'm gonna start not eating no red meat. And what you said, that baby step, that's what I'm doing. This is my baby step. Starting the day, no red meat. Hopefully, well, not hopefully, when I do get to 2 weeks from now, I'll add chicken to it. I'm drinking alkaline water. Like, I'm not playing. Like, I gotta be here for my son and my daughter. I got no choice.
Come on, man.
Thank you, man. I'm glad you brought that up.
Man, much love, brother. And then just on another tip, real quick, this period of time that it's no coincidence that yesterday was Father Day and today is the first day of summer. It's the summer solstice right now. Mm-hmm. And it's got 4 points in the year where transformation takes place, and that's each season. And that's how it's easy to keep up with. And so what you've declared that you're going to start doing, and you started today, probably not even thinking about it being the solstice and the period of change. Mm-hmm. That's that natural piece, you know what I mean? And you're doing it for your children. Imagine you leaving them where they are, like, you know what I mean? So that's enough motivation, fam. And I congratulate you, man. And baby steps, all right? And if you turn around and you go and get take a bite of a burger, don't kick yourself, don't beat yourself up. Say, say that was a good one. Y'all got me again, but you know what? I ain't giving up. That's you surviving a Mike Tyson, that 2-piece, that gut punch and then that uppercut. You surviving that, and it's been on you for a long time. So, man, you slip up, keep pushing, man. Yeah, right. Congratulations, fam.
Thank you. I appreciate both of y'all. Happy belated Father's Day to both of you. And hopefully I see y'all at Roberta's house somewhere on the street. Doc, you'll catch me on my bike. Adam, I'm not running that damn marathon.
We're doing it together, man. I'm telling you, we're doing it together.
I'll be right there on the side talking about yo.
Nope, side by side.
I'm gonna be with
him. This is a group effort now. I'm telling you.
Adam shirts, like
right.
Yeah. Have a blessed day and have an even better week, y'all. Thank you.
Hey, much love, man. Thank y'all.
Too.
Take care.